Hello dear viewers, welcome to Radio Television of Djibouti's English News Edition, the top stories. Djibouti's ambassador in Somalia, Mogadishu, deplores Somalia's president's stance on embargo against Eritrea. And the Djibouti achieves logistic performance and ranks 90th in the world, according to the World Bank. Thank you for joining us in our newsroom. The government and the people of Djibouti expressed their indignation at the statement issued by Somali President Mohamed Abdullah Farmajo during his visit to Eritrea, in which he called on the international community to lift the economic sanctions imposed on Eritrea to play a role to increase the security and stability of neighboring countries in its support for the extreme youth movement in its border dispute with the Republic of Djibouti. As a sovereign state, the Republic of Somalia has full rights to establish diplomatic relations with the states of the region. In this regard, the Republic of Djibouti does not support Somalia as a sister country of Eritrea, which occupies part of its territory and refuses to recognize the presence of Djiboutian prisoners in its prisons, where Somali President Farmajo was to address the current border conflict between Djibouti and Eritrea and find appropriate solutions. It is noteworthy that the Republic sacrificed its men and women during the border conflict with Eritrea and rejects completely the decision of the Somali borders who supported Eritrea despite the presence of Djiboutian soldiers along with the Somali brothers to establish security and stability in Somalia. The Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation, Mahmoud Ali Yusuf, accompanied by the Djiboutian ambassador to France, met with his French counterpart, Jean-Yves Le Diro. The two sides discussed during the hour-long meeting on the strategic relations and how to enhance economic, military and historical cooperation between the two countries. They also discussed the latest development in the region, the issues of mutual interest, the latest developments in the Somali and Yemeni arena, and the border conflict with Eritrea, which was the focus of the discussion. And now let's get back to the national news. The Minister of National Education and Vocational Training, Mustafa Mohamed Mahmoud, continues his participation in the Middle East and North African Ministers of Education Summit. Yesterday, the minister and his delegation took part in roundtables, the opportunity to share the experience of Djibouti in educational policy and especially in the field of technical education and vocational training. In his intervention, the minister first briefly described the socio-economic situation of our country. He emphasized that the human capital is to promote the wealth of our country, hence the need to focus on the development of the education sector and in particular technical education and vocational training, and this is in accordance with the vision of the President of the Republic, Mr. Ismail Merkele. Mr. Mustafa Mohamed Mahmoud said that his country is in full economic growth with the continued development, of port infrastructure and the construction of free zone with regional or even international vocation. He pointed out that to meet the challenge of the vocational training, his department has recently endorsed a new national policy in partnership with the private sector, which remains a key partner in adapting training schemes to constant change of the labor market. The World Bank has just published the long-awaited 2018 report on the Logistics Performance Index. According to this report, Djibouti climbed from 134th in the world to 90th place, an increase of 44 places. In the Comesa zone, the country ranks in 5th place, as in Manda. The Logistic Performance Index, more commonly called Connecting to Compete, in a World Bank report published once every year, 2 years, and as well as the logistics sector of countries on the basis of 6 key creatures. This report is the equivalent of doing business and enables policymakers to have concrete vision of the effectiveness of their country in relations to others in terms of the routing of goods between borders and access to international logistic chains. It is an interactive benchmarking tool based on global survey of operators in the field, global freight forwarder and express carrier, providing feedback on the logistics of the countries in which they operate and those with whom they trade. For this year, the rating on the 6 criteria has been a clear improvement overall expected for the criterion concerning the customs clearance process, which has decreased by 7 places from 160th in 2016 to 113th in 2018. It is from the criterion of infrastructure quality the country marks the most dramatic improvement in its rating from 110th place in 2016 to 60th place, an increase of 50 places. This growth can be explained on the one hand by the significant investment made in recent years by the country in the poor sectors as well as the railway, but also confirms the country's vision to become an international maritime center. Even if the state of the road National 1 corridor between the port in Ethiopia built down this note, in addition, the reforms undertaken in the last 3 years by the Authority of Ports and Free Zones of Djibouti in the maritime sector and the desire to professionalize maritime transport auxiliaries and forwarders, shipping agents and handlers also began to bear fruit. Thus, the criterion concerning the confidence of logistic professionals goes from 152nd 2016 to 135th in 2018. Yesterday evening, an important ceremony was organized at the Chinese Embassy in Djibouti to celebrate the 91st anniversary of the creation of the People's Liberation Army. The ceremony was chaired by the Ambassador of China in Djibouti with the participation of Chinese senior officers including Superior Colonel Ji Mingzhu, military attaché of the Chinese Embassy, diplomats accredited to Djibouti, heads of military missions and Djiboutian senior officers participated in the colorful ceremony. Generals Hassan Ali Kamil and Tahir Mohammed and the Gendarmerie Corps Chief Colonel Zakaria Hassan, the Colonel commanding of the Navy, the head of the Republican Guard Mr. Muhammad Jama took part as well. Since its inception, the Chinese People's Army fought during the Agrarian Revolutionary War, instilling the resistance and then for the liberation of China. It has also conducted self-defense response operations and contributed to the economic development of social progress and the national unity of China. In this area, the People's Liberation Army of China has achieved great feats. During the ceremony, a projection was made for the guests to illustrate the evolution and the great changes made by People's Liberation Army in the country to defend the national sovereignty. Last year, the Djiboutian president made an official visit to China, meeting with the Chinese president to consolidate exemplary relations on many areas. Since the establishment of diplomatic relations 39 years ago, Djibouti and China have been solid and are still strengthening. A signing of a partnership agreement between the Djibouti Football Federation and the Abu Yasser institutions took place this morning at the Sheraton Hotel. The signing agreement took place between the President of the Football Federation, Mr. Suleiman Hassan Waburi, and the President of the Abu Yasser institutions. On this day of Monday, July 34th, was held the signing of a partnership agreement between the Djibouti Football Federation, represented by its emblematic president and member of the executive, Mr. Suleiman Hassan Waburi, and the establishment Abu Yasser, represented by its director, Mr. Nadir Ahmed Said, in order to organize in good auspices the tournament called Super League, which puts in place the 5 first team according to the classification of the season elapsed 2017-2018. To know the Assas versus Djibouti Telecom, GR versus the SEED, and the Aspor and Gendarmerie University in Pastmaida. The Super League tournament will take place every afternoon on Fridays and Monday. The premises of the Executive Secretary of Fight Against AIDS sheltered yesterday morning an expert meeting of Commission of Care, which looked at the assessment of activities on the fight against HIV/AIDS over the last 6 months. The work of this half-yearly midterm session was opened by Secretary General of Health, Dr. Saleh Bonaito Turab, and as the main advisory body in support of the AIDS program, this commission brought together all referral doctors, paramedics, NGO representatives, and partners involved in HIV issues. The participants therefore discussed the issues related to the management of people living with HIV/AIDS, including the improvement of pediatric care, the resistance surveillance strategy, the implementation of the new guidelines of the ARF, and finally, circumstantial themes and difficulties encountered by doctors referring in the exercise of their missions. In the morning of Tuesday, the prefecture of Arta hosted a delegation led by Director General of the ADDS, Mr. Mahdi Mohamed Jama, and Director of Turkish Agency for Cooperation and Coordination, TICA, Mr. Mehmet Taha Dogin. An interview was held in the presence of the Interim Prefect, Mr. Mohamed Fawzi Ahmed Assawi, and the President of the Regional Council of Arta, Mr. Ilmi Bouh, then the TICA and ADDS delegation, accompanied by Deputy Prefect, moved to Gablagalan, a rural locality located 40 kilometers southeast of the Arta region. A consultation and information meeting between the notables and the women of the sector with the delegation took place, in which the representatives of the company gave their grievances. Among the main grievances were the rehabilitation of the reservoir, the construction of the 2 standpipes, and the drinking through in the world. At the request of the Prefect of Tajara, Abdul Malik, the Djiboutian Road Agency has started the roof repair work in the installation of speed bumps in the various arteries of Tajara region for the safety of users. Subsequently, the Prefect went to the site to see the progress of the work and was welcomed by the head of the ADR, Mr. Hamid Bilal. On the other hand, the Northern Service of ADR began the rehabilitation of the National Road 9. The work is requested to prevent and avoid dramatic accidents that occur by the poor conditions of the roads. And now moving on to international news, the Congolese opposition leader Jean-Pierre Bemba returned home on Wednesday after a decade in prison in The Hague for a presidential run, expected to pose a stiff challenge to President Joseph Kabila or his successor in December's election. More with Hindi Ibrahim.
Bemba, whose war crimes convictions at the International Criminal Court (ICC) were cashed on appeal in May, touched down at the Kinshasa Njili airport, where thousands of foreign supporters wore T-shirts, hats, scarves and robes appearing his image. The Congolese people have waited for this moment for a long time. The former Vice President Anna Wallis' return is expected to energize opposition in the Democratic Republic of Congo to Kabila, who has been in power since his Salvador's assassination in 2001, and his birth by constitutional term limited from standing for a new term.
Zimbabwe's ruling party wins absolute majority in National Assembly, 72% official results. More in this video.
Out of 153 constituencies whose results have been compiled, ZANU-PF gets 110 seats, while the MDC, Movement for Democratic Change, gets 41 seats. Announced the state broadcaster CPC, citing the result of the election commission. The National Assembly has a total of 210 seats. The ZANU-PF is therefore already guaranteed an absolute majority in the lower house.
8 groups blame Italy after migrants are sent to Libya. Explanations.
Italian officials deflected responsibility Tuesday after 180 migrants rescued in the Mediterranean were returned to Libya, a move that humanitarian groups said could violate international law. The UN Refugee Agency and Amnesty International denounced the decision to take the migrants to Libya, but both Italian Interim Minister Matteo Salvini and Transport Minister Danilo Toninelli insisted that the rescue carried out by the Italian fleet, also Vetuto supply ship, was coordinated by the Libyan Coast Guard without the involvement of its Italian counterpart.
Denmark bans Islamic full-face veil in public spaces. Explanations.
Denmark has become the latest European country to ban the Islamic full face veil in public space in a move Islam permitted by human rights campaigners as a violation of women's rights. Anyone who wears a garment that hides the face in public will be punished with a fine, says the law, which was passed by 75 votes to 13 in the Danish parliament. Presented by the centralized government, the legislation was also backed by the Social Democrats and the far-right Danish People's Party. The new rule will take effect on 1 August, wearing a burqa which covers the person's entire face or the niqab which only shows the eyes in public will lead to a fine of 1,000 kroner. The fine also targets other accessories that hide the face, such as balaclavas and false piercings. Repeated violation will be fined up to 10,000 kroner. It is known how many women wear the niqab and burqa in Denmark.
Dear viewers, we have just received this information that is right after the news. The ambassador of Djibouti in Washington, Mr. Mohammed Ziad, will deliver an important speech at the Security Council. Good continuation and have a good night.